Siew has more than a decade of practical experience in the field of specific learning differences. She holds the Master of Arts in Specific Learning Differences and a postgraduate certificate in Learning and Teaching in Higher Education from the London Metropolitan University. June is also currently pursuing the Doctor of Education, a dual award program from the National Institute of Education in Singapore, as well as the University College of London in UK. So she has taken a special research interest in the cool and hot executive function in children with reading difficulties. And today her very interesting topic on executive function is titled Blessed by Dyslexia, the Educator's Role in Developing the Potential. Ms. June, please.
Hi, good morning everyone, distinguished guests, fellow colleagues, as well as fellow practitioners. Today this is my topic, Blessed by Dyslexia, the Educator's Role in Developing the Potential. Now when I mention the word educator, I'm talking about three groups of people here. The special needs educators, the mainstream educators, as well as parents. I know that we have a group of parents here, and parents are important because education primarily begins at home. Okay, I think this is not working. Okay, so I have potatoes, eggs, and coffee here. Have you had your breakfast? Okay, if you haven't, bear with me, because you'll soon have your tea break. Okay, but today we're not going to have potato, eggs, or coffee beans for tea. Okay, I'm just going to talk about them because dyslexics can behave in any of these three ways. Okay, so if I have a pot of boiling water, and I put the potatoes in the boiling water, what happens to the potatoes? It becomes soft and mushy, okay? And if I put the eggs into the pot of boiling water, what happens to the eggs? It hardens, right? The inside of the egg hardens. And if I put the coffee beans into the water, what happens to the coffee beans? It infuses the hot water with its flavor and produces a rich aroma, right? And so our dyslexic students can behave in any of these three ways when faced with dyslexia. They either act like a potato, they turn soft, or they act like an egg, they harden and become more useful, or they act like the coffee beans, they change the circumstances around them. Okay, and so I think this gives you a better idea of what you want your students to be. Let's look at what research has found about potatoes. Okay, Pollock, in a study with higher education students, he found that there is a group of students with the patient mindset. Okay, it means that this group of students perceive themselves as having a deficit, as mentioned by Dr. Angela Fawcett. Okay, and they see dyslexia as a weakness, and they are very ashamed of having dyslexia. They don't really tell their friends that they have dyslexia. Okay, and when they apply for courses and to institutions, they are expecting rejection because they feel they are not good enough. Okay, and when faced with problems, they see the problems within themselves. They blame themselves for having dyslexia. And of course, even if they succeed in life, they tend to doubt their intellectual ability. They wonder if it's the accommodations that has helped them get so far. Okay, and then there is another group of students, the more positive ones. Pollock terms the students as having the hemispherist mindset. The students are very well aware of their strengths of a dyslexic. And these students choose to capitalize on their strengths. So they seek out subjects that complement their strengths. And if they're strong in visual spatial awareness, they will go for courses such as the architecture courses or design courses. They are also very well aware of their learning style, okay? And because they are a big picture thinker, they tend to enjoy courses and lectures which are set out as diagrams, and they thrive on using concept mapping as well as colors in note-taking. So they can advocate for dyslexics. Okay, and then there is a last group of students who are termed the coffee beans. Now, these students are well aware of the weaknesses caused by dyslexia. So while the X are aware of their strengths, the coffee beans are very aware of their weaknesses. And they are aware that they are slower than others in reading, spelling, writing, even automaticity. Yeah, but does that cause them to shun away from occupations that emphasize a lot on literacy? Not so. Instead, they confront their weaknesses, okay? And their limitations actually force them to develop strategies that would otherwise have lain dormant, okay? And because of these strategies, they can compensate their weaknesses. And as a result, the strategies actually made them stronger than others without these limitations. Now, by now, I think you might be asking me, are there really such people? Are there live examples of coffee beans? Yes, there are. Do you know him? David Boies? I think many of you might not have heard of him before. He is a famous American lawyer who has taken on a few high-profile cases. And he is a coffee bean. Okay? He uses listening as a strategy. He is severely dyslexic and he cannot read at all. Okay? And he says that he has learned to listen to compensate for the lack of reading. Okay? And he was forced to learn to listen because that was the only way he could learn. And he said, I remember what people said, I remember the words they use. So he uses his memory as a compensating tool for his weaknesses in reading. And while his friends were furiously scribbling in class, trying to copy down what the lecturer is saying, he would listen intently, focusing on what was said, and he committed everything he heard to his memory. And as a result, he retained much more than others without dyslexia. Okay? Not that he was a good listener from the start, but he decided to use listening as a compensation tool against dyslexia. Okay, and then we have another example closer to home. This is our founding father, Mr. Kuan Yew. Okay, he knows that he tends to misread words. So he will actually try to reread the word so that he doesn't make a mistake. But rereading slows him down. Okay, and but precisely because of that, once he reads, it sticks. Okay, compared to us who reads very quickly, he retains more information than us. And of course, you can tell that he is definitely sharper than all of us. Okay, and so these are just two examples of dyslexics who live their lives as coffee beans. So I think by now you would have a better idea of what you want your students to be: potato, egg, or coffee bean. So who wants your students to be potatoes? Who wants, okay, you can choose more than one. Who wants your student to be an egg? Yes, me too. Coffee bean is not the correct answer, so don't worry. Okay, so eggs. Who wants your students to be eggs? To be people who are able to capitalize on their strengths. Yeah? Okay, and who wants their students to be coffee beans? Yes, yeah? Okay, I think most of you would choose between eggs and coffee beans. Okay, but which is harder to do? Yeah, coffee bean. It requires greater effort. It requires more hard work. Okay. Okay, but coffee beans have the growth mindset. Okay, it's hard to do, but these people have the growth mindset. Okay, and what is the growth mindset? The term growth mindset was coined by researchers Mueller and Dweck. Okay, they did this study on growth mindset, and I think many of us educators would have heard about this. Okay, so there were 128 students, they are 5th graders, they took part in this study. And they were all given a set of 10 questions to do. Okay, and at the end of the 10 questions, they were either told, regardless of how they performed, they were either told, well done, you have worked hard at these questions. Okay, and then the other half were told, well done, you must have been smart at these questions. Okay, so by doing this, the researchers actually put them into 2 categories, intelligence and effort. Okay, so those who were praised for being smart were in the intelligence category. Those who were praised for their hard work were put in the effort category. Okay, and then after that, they gave them an option to choose the next test. Okay, and for those in the intelligence category, 67% of them chose the easier option. On the contrary, those who were praised for effort, 92% of them chose the harder option. Now, why the difference, you might ask? Now, those who were praised for being intelligent wanted to maintain their intelligence. So they wouldn't go for a more difficult option. They would want to go for a safer option so that it proves that they are intelligent once more. Okay, and then after this stage, the researchers gave them another impossible test. Okay, and the students behaved differently again. Those in the intelligence group, they got frustrated very easily and they wanted to give up. But those in the other group, they worked harder, they worked longer, and they even enjoyed the test more than the other group. Okay? And at the last stage of the study, they were given a test, okay, a final test, and this test was as easy as the first. Yet, amongst the intelligent group, the average score decreased by 20%. And in the other group, the effort group, the average score actually increased by 30%. So you can see how important it is to acknowledge children for their effort instead of intelligence. And of course, since this study, all educators have embraced the growth mindset. We think it is the right thing to have and the right thing to believe in. Okay? And so we might say things like that. Don't worry, you will get it if you keep trying. Or great effort. You have tried your best. Have you said that before? I have. Have you? Yes? Yeah, I think oftentimes we don't want our students to feel bad. We have seen the hard work that they have put in, and we want to encourage them, and that's fine, yeah? Okay, but there is just one small problem with this. Now, if the student is trying very hard, but is not learning, then that's a big problem. And these statements actually do not address the learning part. Okay, the growth mindset is not just about effort, and Dweck has come forward last year in an article to clarify this. Okay, because I think she noticed that educators are relating the growth mindset to just effort. So it's synonymous with effort. But that's just one part of the equation. There is another part of the equation, which is the learning part. Okay? And some students, they keep trying, but they're using the wrong strategies. And as a result, they are not learning. And that's a problem because that's not what the growth mindset is about. Okay, so the growth mindset is about effort, but it's also about learning. And by learning, I actually mean being aware of the strategies that they are currently using, and then thinking, if the strategies do not work, what do I do next? That is the learning bit. Okay? So instead of just saying, well done, you have worked hard, what can we say to promote the growth mindset? Okay, you can try saying things in any of these three ways. You can say, learning to read using phonics is tough, but it grows your reading brain. And in research, this is actually backed up by Siew. Yeah? Okay, or you can say, if phonics can't help you to spell the word necessary, because it has so many C's and so many S, and the sounds are all the same, what can we try next? Can we use mnemonics? Like it's necessary to have one collar, one C, and two sleeves on a shirt, two S. Okay? Or you can say, ever since you started to use mind maps to plan your essay, your writing has improved dramatically. So you can see that the common factor amongst all these statements is that the teacher is actually addressing the strategy that the students are using to help them achieve. So for educators, we have seen what I can do. We have seen what I can say to promote the growth mindset. Now the question is, what can I do to promote the growth mindset? Okay, so we have to be aware of the students' current level of achievement. We have to help them to be aware as well. Okay, and we have to help them to reach the next level of learning by using new strategies when the old ones do not work. I think Dr. Angela Fawcett has shown us that dyslexics are slower, they have slower processing than other typical developing students. Okay? And because of that, they really need a repertoire of strategies to learn. They cannot just learn with one rigid style. Okay? And so it is our responsibilities, whether as special needs educators or mainstream educators, to provide a multitude of strategies for them so that when they fail in one, when they try hard and fail in one, they can then use another. Okay? Okay, and so I will be using the universal design for learning to see how we can actually help students develop the growth mindset. Okay? The universal design for learning is a framework for instruction with the aim of making learning inclusive for all learners. And mainstream school teachers are taught to use this framework of instruction. Okay? It has 3 principles, okay? But I will just focus on the middle principle, which is to provide multiple ways of action and expression. Okay? In other words, provide flexible ways for how students learn and express what they know so that they can be strategic learners. Okay? And under this principle, there are 3 guidelines. Optimize access to tools and assistive technology. Use multiple tools for construction and composition. And finally, to help learners take advantage of the environment through executive function skills. And I will bring you through all these 3 guidelines with real examples. Okay, let's look at optimizing access to tools. Let's talk about spelling. Because I think this is something we are all very familiar with. Okay, now, in a typical classroom, which of these 3 does the teacher provide for the students? 1, 2, or 3? 3, right? Okay, most teachers would provide a typical spelling sheet for the student to do, okay? But if you want to be a flexible teacher, if you want to enable your students to develop the growth mindset, you should be providing more than one way of expression, okay? So for special needs educators who are working with dyslexic students, you can choose to provide the concrete manipulative called the finger fast spell. It's created by one of our ex-educational therapists, and it's on sale at the DAS. Okay, you can provide this concrete tool to help students with spelling. And for certain students, touching the letters, seeing the color difference between the vowels and the consonants actually help them with spelling. Okay, so for students who are averse to spelling, this can be the first tool that they use to probably bridge the gap between their distaste for spelling. Okay, the second one, the middle one, is a worksheet. It's a simple worksheet, but with lines, with blanks and spaces between the blanks. Okay, and the blanks, the spaces are really for the sounds that a word has. So if I have a word, black, okay, for instance, black has 4 sounds. So the student would just put the sounds into the onto the line B, B, L, A, C, K. All right. So this provides an additional layer of scaffolding for them, because they can either, once they are used to the finger fast spell and they can move on, they can then use this as a bridging tool to cross over to this. Okay, so it's important to provide 3 forms of tools for spelling. Okay, and another example of optimizing access to assistive technology is that we can provide a digital book instead of a paper and pen comprehension exercise. So I have given you this website here. You can actually go to this website to build your own books or comprehension passages. Okay, and this is free. And in this software, you can actually provide glossary terms. You can define the definition of hard words. You can provide illustrations, and you can activate the animated agents. These agents will actually give your students scaffolding and clues when the reading gets tough. And it will also ask them, remind them to use the different strategies for reading comprehension. Okay, and so this is a variation that we can actually create in the classroom. And I have actually done a digital book myself prior to this, and it's really quite easy. You just type in the text, and of course it requires more preparation. But if you want to create strategic learners who to allow them to have multiple styles, multiple approaches of learning, then this is something valuable to do. Okay, and a study on digital learning environment, okay, using a book, a digital book that I have shown you earlier, has actually very good feedback. Okay, so both students with and without disabilities have found that the strategic reader, it's another program that was just created for their research, okay? But it was similar to what I have shown you, okay? So this program was useful for helping their reading, okay? But students with disabilities actually rated their experience more highly than students without disabilities. And of course, they said that the animated help agents, as well as the text-to-speech functions, were the most helpful functions. Okay, so in the digital book, you can actually get the computer to read to you. So it's a text-to-speech function. Okay. Okay, and then let's look at multiple tools for construction and composition. Now, in a typical classroom, a teacher usually asks the student to plan your story on foolscap paper and then write, right? But if you are a educator who's passionate about the growth mindset, then you would take the trouble to actually plan and prepare more flexible ways of learning and expression for your students. Okay, you might want to prepare a graphic organizer, okay, such as a story mountain, and this is very good for planning narratives. Okay, or you might prepare a mind mapping app or a software for your students to use, because some students do better with mind mapping. Okay, and instead of just allowing your students to write on foolscap paper, you can actually allow them to work on a word processor. Okay, so it's really for you to advocate for the students' needs. Okay, and the last guideline of the principle that I want to, the last guideline of the principle of the UDL is actually to build executive skills. Okay, and this is echoed by the National Reading Panel. Okay, National Reading Panel has actually found that a variety of techniques and systematic strategies are very helpful for helping comprehension. Okay, and this is what we want to build in our students. Okay, this comprehension strategies actually help them with their executive functioning. And in a survey of effective teachers, these researchers found that these 5 techniques are the top techniques that are used by effective teachers. So activating prior knowledge, predicting upcoming events, finding main idea, self-questioning, summarizing are all top choices of effective teachers. These teachers have been nominated to be effective by their peers. Okay, and so this comprehension self-assessment follows up on that. Now, the purpose of this is twofold. It's to give educators a series of tools that they can use for comprehension. These are a series of strategies that you can teach for comprehension to build their executive functioning. Okay, and another way to use this is to use this as a self-assessment checklist after you have taught your students these strategies. So at the end of a comprehension lesson, you might want them to do a self-evaluation which builds metacognition. And they can highlight the tools that they have used. And of course, you can link that to a reward system if you wish. Okay, so earlier I have shown you how you can help your students to become coffee beans. There must be a balance between the emphasis on effort, as well as the emphasis on flexible ways of learning and expression. Okay, because only by providing flexible ways of learning and expression, then can you allow them to learn, to reflect on the strategies used. Okay, so what are some implications on teacher training? Okay, we have seen that teachers must be trained sufficiently to provide flexible ways for students to learn and express themselves. Okay, and this training can be in terms of reading or reading comprehension, grammar, writing, or math. Okay, and this is precisely our focus for our 3 diploma programs at the DES Academy. Okay, we have the diploma in SPLD, Specific Learning Differences, which is open to all. We have the diploma in Educational Therapy, which is our in-house training program. And we have the diploma in Special Education, which is tailored for allied educators from the Ministry of Education. In all of these programs, we emphasize a lot on providing multiple ways of learning for our dyslexic learners, and we focus on the universal design for learning as well. Okay, And in a survey among allied educators done last year, okay, we found that all the allied educators module received a strongly agree or agree rating on its relevance to work. So the allied educators have found that what we have taught them in our classes are strongly relevant to their work. Okay, and I think this is precisely what educators need. We need education on a multitude of tools that we can use with our learners, because all of them come in different size and packages, and there is no one-size-fits-all strategy. Okay, so for educators, if you want to grow, I will urge you to embark on a training roadmap. Okay, in your first 2 years of service, you might want to focus on gaining the practical skills, the many strategies that your students will need. Okay, what we have spoken about today. All right, and then in your second and third year of your career, you might want to choose to specialize now that you have mastered the foundations. Okay, and in the third year and beyond, you might want to attain mastery in what you're doing. Okay, because only by growing yourself, your students can grow. Okay, so I started with this question: what do you want your students to be? Okay, and now I will throw this question to you, okay, and I will ask you as educators, how do you behave when adversity comes along your way? Are you a potato, an egg, or a coffee bean? Okay, I think this question is very important for us as educators, because eventually how your students turn out is a reflection of what you are imparting to them. Okay, and with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.